Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. My name is Jessica Yang from Oxford International Education Group. I'm based in Seoul. We have our OIG colleague, beautiful Nan in Thailand. Hi, Nan. And our Lin in Taiwan. And hi, Lin, if you can hear us.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello. And we have Hima. I can't find her, but we have Hima here as well. And we have a very special guest for today's presentation from the DeMontfort University team, who's going to tell us about MPharm and the PCS programs. So very excited about today's session. All over to you, Tim.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. So I'll share my screen. And then if you, I don't think you have this this version of the presentation because can you see my screen now?
Yes, split view. Yes. Okay,
so if you can see the full screen now.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't think you have this version. I changed it slightly from the PDF that you sent me, so I can send you this this later on.
Thank you.
Okay, so my name's Tim Snape. I'm the new admissions lead within the School of Pharmacy at DeMontfort University, and I'll talk you through some of the sort of unique points of our Pharmaceutical and Cosmetic Science course, as well as the MPharm program, the pharmacy program, and obviously there'll be opportunities at the end as well to ask any questions. So good afternoon, everybody. Can you see my slides progress, Jessica? Yep, okay. So as I said, my name's Tim Snape. My email address is there at the bottom, and I'm happy to deal with any questions you may have via email or via Jessica, and I'll do my best to answer those. But I've only taken over the admissions lead role in the last couple of weeks when one of our colleagues left the university. But you know, I'll do my best to answer everything, any questions that you have. So welcome to the Faculty of Health and Life Sciences. That's where the School of Pharmacy sits. And as I said, I'm the admissions lead. And within the faculty, we have a large number of accredited and approved courses which are accredited by professional bodies. And in particular case today, our MPharm program is accredited by the General Pharmaceutical Council. And for students to become registered pharmacists, they have to have graduated from a course which is accredited. And all of our courses are delivered by academics that are either experts in their subject area or practitioners in their field of expertise. So, for example, I myself, I'm a chemist, I'm an organic chemist, and we have biologists as well that teach on the programs. We have pharmaceutical scientists as well. But with regards to MPharm, we also have lots of pharmacists who, some of which are full-time at the university and others who are part-time, and they do their one part of their job will be working in a hospital or in a community pharmacy, and the other part will be working with us in the university. So the students get exposure to real life, timely experience throughout their whole program. So Leicester School of Pharmacy, it's one of the most well-established schools of pharmacy in the UK, and we've been covering the subject of pharmacy for over 100 years. Within the school, we currently have 1,700 students, and we are 87 staff strong. And not everybody is full-time, working 5 days a week. So that equates to 73, just over 73 full-time equivalent members of staff. And the undergraduate programs that we currently have in our profile are the pharmacy course, which we call MPharm. We also have a forensic science program, but we're not talking about that today. We have the pharmaceutical and cosmetic science course, which I'll talk about as well today. And then we have pharmaceutical science 3+1, which is for international students only. It's like a top up of their 3-year degree from their home country. And as I mentioned, of relevance today, the MPharm is accredited by the General Pharmaceutical Council. We also have a number of postgraduate programs, in particular an MSc in Pharmaceutical Quality by Design, which allows students to learn about designing high quality products for the pharmaceutical industry, an MSc in Pharmaceutical Biotechnology, and an MSc in Clinical Leadership, Education and Research Skills. So I'll focus initially on the pharmaceutical and cosmetic science undergraduate program, and then move on to pharmacy in the second part. And obviously you can ask questions on either of those. The other courses I've mentioned are for information only at this stage. So within Leicester, we have lots of multicultural areas of interest. It's a very multicultural city. We have lots of sports. So you may have heard of Leicester City Football Club, which did very well a few years ago. It's a very cost-effective place to live. So it's a cheap place for students to live. And also with it being, there's 2 universities in the city, and so the city itself is very well accommodating for students. So there's lots for them to do. Oh, so there's lots of pictures of Leicester, or some parts of Leicester anyway. So what is this pharmaceutical and cosmetic science degree? So we call this PCS for short. And the course involves strong chemical sciences and how to design pharmaceutical drugs, but also because the formulation science that is used to formulate drugs into medicines is very similar to the formulation science that is used to formulate cosmetics, then these 2 areas work very well together. And so we teach how to creatively design drugs or cosmetics for use in the human body. And as a result of that, the career opportunities are varied, and students will typically go on, ideally they'll go on to work within the pharmaceutical or cosmetic sector, and that could be at large multinational, international companies, or small sort of enterprises locally. Students can also go on to study for a PhD afterwards, so they may want to do further research and do a PhD, or they may wish to go on do teacher training and that type of thing as well. So it's a very good, solid degree with a strong focus in pharmaceutical and cosmetic science, but also it's general enough as a very strong scientific degree to allow you to go on to research, teaching, and other sectors where a good degree is required. In terms of entry and admissions for PCS, a typical offer would be 96 points from at least 2 A levels, which would include chemistry, because that's the sort of the underpinning science, and one other science at grade C or above. And typically we would expect those to be biology, human biology, physics, statistics, maths, etc. So they would need to be strong science-based subjects. We wouldn't accept social sciences for that type of thing. It would have to be a traditional strong science. We also accept the BTEC entry route as well, either the national diploma or the extended diploma, and access courses as well. And for students with GCSEs, we would expect them to have a grade C or grade 4 or above, and that must include English and maths. So that's that GCSE requirement is a university requirement for all degree programs. So in terms of why studying, what are the USPs of this course? Well, up to date, or up to 2017, 100% of the graduates went on to work went on to do further study or work after graduating. So the employability is very high. And the Delhi data, this destinations of leavers from higher education in 2016-17, had a 90% highly skilled employment or further study. The students gave the course 95% overall satisfaction rating in the 2018 NSS data. Sorry, I don't have any more recent data than that. So they're very happy with the course. They can also have a 12-month work placement, and this is an option that they can choose. They would need to have access to an industry to do that, and that would take place between years 2 and 3, and that enables them to put their theory into practice and build on skills and generate their CV, which gives them the skills which the graduate employers are looking for. And also locally, nationally and internationally, they can apply to volunteer through the DMU Global scheme. So for example, microbiology in India, or pharmaceuticals in China, cosmetics in Italy, for example. And a number of opportunities in Leicester with the Square Mile programs. And also, as you saw, one of my slides earlier on, DeMontfort University has achieved gold in the TEF, the Teaching Excellence Framework, which is the highest ranking possible. And so the students do get a really outstanding learning and teaching experience if they come to our university. And there's just some of the recent students on the PCS course. So it's, as I said, it's diverse, it's multicultural, and the students seem happy, at least at that poster event, and they do seem to really enjoy being challenged on the course. In terms of the course structure, it's designed intentionally to support the students in theory and practice. So we have face-to-face teaching, which is complemented by lectures, small groups, workshops, that type of thing. Although over the last 2 years, that has been affected by the COVID pandemic. So face-to-face teaching was halted, and we did a lot of online teaching, but it's gradually coming back. And there are more and more students on campus over the last few months. The students also get practical skills through laboratory experience, and typically that will they'll get that through formulation sciences and analytical skills, and directly relevant to the pharmaceutical and cosmetic industries. So in year 1, they focus on pharmaceutical formulation, and in year 2, the topics become more applied, and they get a lot more cosmetic elements. And as I said, they can do the option year in industry, if that's available. And then in year 3, more advanced, as you would expect. So quality assurance, manufacturing principles, and they do a project as well. And they get some choice in that final year through electives as well. So moving on to MPharm and MPharm with the International Year 0. in terms of career opportunities, most people, well, certainly from a UK perspective, nearly all students that we have on our MPharm program want to be pharmacists. You do get a few students that want to go on and do PhDs or work in industry, but the vast majority want to work in a community pharmacy, so a high street pharmacy, or within a hospital setting. In terms of the international students that I've taught in the past on pharmacy programs, some of them decide to stay in the UK and become pharmacists. Others will go back to their home country because they want to set up a pharmacy there. But the system is very much designed around the NHS, and so they would need to make sure that what we teach here is applicable in their home country, or if there's some kind of converter program they would need to do to make sure that it was relevant. But as I said, that the course is designed for students to go on to be pharmacists, either within the community, which responds to the health needs of the community, so just walk-in pharmacies as you see on the high street. They can also work in primary care pharmacies within a GP surgery, or within healthcare commissioners. And because the situation in the UK, it's changing. The role of the pharmacist is changing and becoming more and more important as GPs. The roles are slightly changing, so pharmacists are stepping up now to do a lot more roles that GPs traditionally did, and so having pharmacists within the GP setting is becoming more and more popular and more prevalent. But we also have students that go on to work in hospitals and become part of the wider healthcare team. And as I mentioned, some students do go on to work in industry, the pharmaceutical industry. They'll do a PhD and then maybe go and do research, developing new medicines, or working as formulation scientists, or health and safety and Q&A, quality and assurance, that type of thing. And as I mentioned right back at the beginning, in terms of the way the staffing is allocated within the school, we do have pharmacists teaching on the course as well, a large number. And so some students will end up going back into academia and becoming an academic pharmacist and teaching the next generation. And also then engaging with their own research as well. And like I say, some will go into private sector or NHS, and some will go on to do research and become fully fledged research academics that way too. So there are a large number of career opportunities, and there's more beyond these as well. But it tends to be quite a vocational program where students will traditionally want to become pharmacists at the end of it in some way or other. So in terms of studying pharmacy at DeMontfort, as opposed to the other 30-odd schools of pharmacy in the country, well, we have, as I said, we have 100 years of teaching pharmacy in the UK. We have integrated work placements, so the students will go into hospital pharmacies and community pharmacies to enable them to put their work into practice and build upon their skills. And again, we're trying to make the students employable and employability ready. And so we want to give them the skills that the employers are looking for. As we mentioned before, there are volunteering opportunities through DMU Global, which enables them to go abroad, as well as within Leicester itself. And as I said, the university does have gold in this teaching excellence framework. So the policies and the regulations that the university puts in place for teaching and learning apply to all programs. And so we do offer a very strong, outstanding learning and teaching opportunity to all students. And there are the home year zero and international year zero options for international students. The course itself is the MPharm program is 4 years long, but if students do a year zero, then that adds an extra year to that. But once they graduate, they then go off into pharmacies and do a year-long training course within a community or hospital pharmacy. And at the end of that year, that's a paid year, they get paid to do that. At the end of that year, they then have to sit an exam, which is completely separate from the university, and that's run by the General Pharmaceutical Council, the accrediting body, and the students have to pass that exam before they're fully qualified pharmacists. So they have to graduate from an accredited school like we are after 4 years. Then they have to do a subsequent training year, which is now known as the foundation year. And once they've passed that exam, then they're a fully qualified pharmacist. But they have to pass the General Pharmaceutical Council's exam, which is I think it's a full 52 weeks after they graduate. That's the earliest they can sit that exam, and they work full time in a community hospital, in a community pharmacy or a hospital pharmacy for that full 52 weeks, and they're mentored, they have a supervisor, and then at the end of that full year, they sit the exam. And I think they have 3 opportunities to pass that exam, and then they can become a fully qualified pharmacist. But until they achieve that, they're not a licensed pharmacist in the UK. So obviously, if there's an international year 0 element, then that'll add a further year at the very beginning. So yeah, as I said, we're accredited by the General Pharmaceutical Council, and this is the building where we live. We're in the Hawthorne building, so it's a very old building, but there are lots of new elements to campus as well. So it's an attractive campus university. Excuse me. We do have dedicated facilities and dedicated labs and equipment, dedicated staff as well, for the teaching of both pharmacy and PCS, the Pharmaceutical and Cosmetic Science program. So there are some apologies if pictures slightly blurred, but during the last 2 years we've had to socially distance. So here are some socially distanced first year MPharm students in a microbiology class. So as you can imagine, over the last 2 years, we've had to do many more repeats of practical sessions and workshops because we were limited to the size or the number of students that we could have in each room. And so we had to run things many times, but that's gradually changing now. But I suppose we can't predict the future. So if the COVID pandemic comes back again with and we have to go back to those that situation, then we can at least deal with it, and we'll know how to run sessions with smaller groups. But the intention is to go back to previous pre-COVID teaching conditions going forward within the guidelines set by the government. In terms of the International Year 0 Pharmacy integrated with 5-year CAS, the students would need a 60% overall pass, with 65% in both Chemistry 1 and Chemistry 2 modules to progress. So they do various study skills and English for academic purposes. They study function of cells and tissues and biochemistry. And then they do the Chemistry 1 and Chemistry 2 modules, which they must get 65% in. So it gives them a good, a wide sort of experience, and gives them the skills that they'll need to cope with year 1 in pharmacy, because pharmacy is very much broken down really into sciences related to chemistry, sciences related, or physical sciences in general, sciences related to biology, so biochemistry, pharmacology, etc. And then the third element is all of the pharmacy practice, where they learn all about prescribing and the law and all of that type of thing. But we don't expect them to have experience in that. It's mainly the sciences that we need to get them up to speed on, and we teach them all of the pharmacy practice from day 1. And in terms of progression requirements for IYZ students to enroll onto the MPharm course, the proper MPharm program. They must successfully complete that IYZ program with an average of 60% across all modules, plus the 65% in chemistry 1 and 2. So that, just to reiterate, it's an average overall of 60, but they must get 65% in chemistry 1 and 2. And that just, the reasons for that is because chemistry is where students tend to struggle. So we need to have a grounding at 65% in those modules so that we know that they can cope with the rest of the course. So the MPharm program, the way that it's established, the structure is down to the individual university and the individual school of pharmacy to set out, but the content and how it's constructed, or the underpinnings of it, is set out by the General Pharmaceutical Council. And so the General Pharmaceutical Council say that we must have a very multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary approach to the program. So we can't teach chemistry on its own, biology on its own, and pharmacy practice on its own. We need to make sure that all of the clinical decisions which are founded in the pharmacy practice elements, they're all underpinned by the science. And so we need to teach the things in together, and the rationale for the clinical decisions is underpinned by the science. And so we teach in rather than teaching in subjects, we teach in body systems. So for example, in year 1, it covers people and medicines. So we have an introduction to pharmacy, which is for half of the year, and we have the gastrointestinal and nutrition module. And then in year 2, we cover infection and inflammation in one module, and cardiovascular and respiratory system in another. And within each of these body systems, we teach the chemistry, the biology, and the pharmacy practice that's relevant to that system. And then in 3rd year, which is advanced therapeutics, we cover personalized healthcare, and then the CNS system and endocrine. And then finally in 4th year, the professional clinician, we're looking at skills that are advanced within practice and sort of complicated patients. So patients have multiple morbidities, so elderly patients and young children, and that type of thing. And we also have, as you'll see there in yellow, a portfolio that runs through every year, where students have to create a portfolio of evidence that they're meeting certain skills. So that's how the course is currently run, although we are going through a reaccreditation process. So every 5 or 6 years, you have to be reaccredited by the General Pharmaceutical Council. And in between those reaccreditations, the General Pharmaceutical Council can change what they're asking us to do. And so we have to adapt. And we're currently going to be reaccredited in 2023, so next year. And so we're currently looking at how the course could change. And so it would depend on when students that you recruit would look to come. So it may be as I'm talking about now, or it may be a slightly different variation, but it will be accredited by the General Pharmaceutical Council. So in year 1, it's all to do with the origin and chemistry of drugs. So we do try and introduce the students a little bit to some chemistry, just to help make them all, to get them all up to the same level. So chemical synthesis or isolation of drugs, and tell the students where drugs are coming from. But we will pin that those chemistry lectures on the gastrointestinal and nutrition sort of area. Chemical analysis as well as how drugs work and why they work, and sort of drug interactions within the body. But again, they will be underpinned by this GI and nutrition theme. We also look at formulation. We focus mainly on tablets, capsules in year 1, and a little bit of ointment and injectable formulations. And they study pharmaceutics. So this is very similar to what they do in the PCS degree. So pharmaceutics is all to do with the formulation of drugs into medicine. So there'll be some similarity between those lectures on the pharmacy program and those lectures in the PCS course as well. But the PCS will study formulation in cosmetics as well. And then in terms of this introduction to pharmacy module, there's also microbiology, physiology, pathology, pharmacology, but again, all within a theme of a body system theme. And then pharmacy practice. So we also cover medicine supply, advisory roles, the law, all those types of things. Students learn to respond to symptoms of an illness within a pharmacy setting. We do role plays, and they talk to pharmacists, and they act out being pharmacists, and they learn communication skills and how to interact properly and professionally with patients, promoting healthy lifestyles, and advising healthcare professionals, carers, all that type of thing on how to use their medicines effectively. And as well as the teaching that we do in year 1, members of staff also do research. So most members of staff are research active, and it's a passion for lots of staff. So here we have an example where, so this is Professor Katie Laird. She's helped write a book called The Germs Journey, which has gone international to show and educate children on the spread of disease, and that's obviously been has a huge impact during the coronavirus pandemic. So she's a microbiologist, but very much a pedagogic approach to sort of education around antimicrobial resistance. We have Professor Joan Taylor, who looked at research around the artificial pancreas. Randolph, who looked at artemisinin derivatives and natural products for developing new therapies. We have Professor Huddersman. She looks at waste treatment and trying to detoxify chemical wastewater. We have staff that look at forensic research as well as sort of pharmacy practice-based research. So Professor Larry Goodyear looks at research around traveling and the medicine you need to take. And very recently, Nick Turner has become an EPSR research fellow. He researches into molecularly imprinted polymers, and he's just secured a research grant of £1.3 million from the EPSRC Research Council to study that area. And so the university is very research active, and we can also teach the students through a research-informed teaching approach, so that they're learning not just the theory that's been around for a long time, but also very current research, and we can apply that to their teaching as well, and hopefully stimulate them to do research of their own in the future. The teaching on the course, we use a variety of methods, so lectures, case studies, labs, group work. We have interprofessional workshops where the students go and work with medics from Leicester University, paramedics, nurses, all that type of thing as well. So they learn from each other and how each fits in the healthcare system. And we assess students through MCQ exams, clinical assessments, so OSCEs, written coursework, posters, portfolios, sort of a wide range of different approaches to hopefully play to each student's individual strengths. In terms of entry for pharmacy, they have to be interviewed. So we have a short interview for pharmacy students with some simple calculations being asked, which they have to answer without a calculator. And currently they're done over sort of Teams. So we do a sort of an online based interview, and they have to pass that interview. They also have to have the equivalent to the maths I talked about earlier. So that would have to be equivalent to GCSE grade 4 or grade C or above, either through NARIC or ECTIS. And they would also need IELTS of 6.5 with a minimum of 6 in all components. And we would need evidence of when that IELTS test was taken. And also other equivalents to IELTS we will accept as well. But I'm not exactly sure what those are at the moment. And then A-levels, similar to PCS, but we need 120 points from the A-levels, which would include chemistry. So that again is fixed. And then one of those other sciences that we talked about before, and they would need to be at grade B or above. And obviously overseas qualifications, as long as they're equivalent through ECTIS or NARIC, then they would be accepted, as well as the International Baccalaureate, which is 30 plus points with 6 higher level points in chemistry and another science. So we keep it as equitable as possible with the A-level entry qualifications. Additional things to note, students need to have a satisfactory self-declaration and a enhanced DBS check. So they need to be checked to make sure they don't have any criminal convictions or anything like that. They also need to do an occupational health check and a declaration around that to say that they're healthy and well and have no problems from that perspective. But obviously we do support students with learning difficulties and require extra time. And a certificate of good conduct from the home country is also required for international students, as well as, and when they're here, complying with uniform policy for placement. So we expect the students, when they do go on to placement, they're representing the university and the School of Pharmacy, so we expect them to dress appropriately, behave professionally, etc. We have a highly developed personal tutorial system in pharmacy. So the portfolio that I mentioned that was in yellow on that colourful slide, we have regular meetings with tutees to make sure that they're interacting with that appropriately through this professional portfolio module. But the university also has a wellbeing programme for students that are struggling and student mentoring. And we also have at least 2 hours per week set aside in our timetables for students to contact us for one-to-one support. And we also have a dedicated careers event for students that want to go on to work within the pharmacy setting. Support student-wide. We have the Student Advice Centre. We have the Student Union, so the DeMontfort Student Union, who offer support to students. Pre-enrollment events, so students can get to know more about the university before they come here. We have obviously the library and learning zones. Students can also get support for maths and English support at university. And we can help them with counselling, mental health, disability support, so they may get extra time for their exams, etc., depending on how they're assessed. So we give as much support as we can, and all of these things have been have helped us generate this gold status through the Teaching in Excellence framework. So that's the end of my talk, Jessica. I hope I didn't overrun. There's my contact details again, tim.snape@dmu.ac.uk. And if you do have questions, feel free to email me or pass them through Jessica, and she can collate them, and we can answer them that way.
Tim, actually, can I ask some question before you actually stop screen sharing?
Yeah.
I think it's better. It's really nice to know a little more about the programs and what activities and what exams and all. My question is, can you explain to us a little more about the interview part? Because
Yep.
I know they do get asked for the simple calculation without calculator.
Yeah, so it's not as scary as it sounds. I mean, obviously the students are going to be nervous.
Yes.
And so there's an element of nerves associated with it, but it's very much it's as much an opportunity for the students to get to know more about us as it is for us to get to know about the students. So it's not a rigorous interview like you would have if you went for a job. It's slightly more informal than that, although students, we like to see them dressed smartly and be professional, and because we will take that into account, and we want to make sure that the students are on their own in a room and they're not being helped. But we ask questions around, obviously why they want to do pharmacy, and where their interests lie, and if they have any work experience or any experience of pharmacy at all, so that they know what type of job they're going into. Because as I mentioned at the beginning, most students that go on to do a pharmacy degree want to become a pharmacist, and we just like to make sure that we know, or that they know exactly what they're getting themselves into, because some students don't really appreciate how a pharmacy degree differs from say a pharmaceutical chemistry degree or another science degree, and it is very much focused on becoming a pharmacist. So there's a big part of the degree is pharmacy practice, where they learn all about prescribing, drug interactions, and how to take their medicines, the law, how to interact with patients, and all that type of thing, and the legality around prescriptions, and how it works within the NHS setting. And so we need to make sure that students are aware of that. So even if they haven't got any work experience, and we don't require that because it's difficult to achieve, but they may have spoken to friends or family who are pharmacists, and they understand how it works, at least in their home country, and maybe for the purposes of today, do they have any understanding of how it's different from their home country to the UK? So we would ask questions around that. We also want to make sure that they're prepared for university study. So we may ask them about how they feel university is different to high school, and are they prepared for an independent sort of experience, and international students, we may ask questions around living in the UK. They will also do some simple calculations. Now, the mathematical manipulations, the sums, if you like, that we ask them to do are very straightforward, but they're applied. So we will ask them simple calculations that they can do with a pen and paper, but we apply them to pharmacy. And so usually the students get slightly more confused when it's applied to a pharmacy question. So, for example, if I give you an example, we may ask a patient, an applicant, how many tablets they would give a patient if they are prescribed so many tablets a day for so many weeks. And they would have to do a very simple calculation of one number multiplied by another, but when we give it them in terms of a medical problem, they have to take 2 tablets a day for one, and then check, maybe the dose would change and whatever. So the actual calculations are very simple. It might be like 28 days times 4 or something very simple with a pen and paper. But when we give them it in a sort of an applied setting, sometimes they can struggle because they get confused with all the other information. But the actual calculations themselves are simple. And then we sometimes we will also give them a scenario question where we'll give them a particular scenario. So, and we will ask them how they would deal with that scenario. And usually it's some kind of ethical, very, very light touch, nothing complicated, nothing too controversial, just how they would deal with other problematic students on the course, or how they would deal with issues within group work, that type of thing. So, we give them some kind of problem or scenario that they may well find themselves in as a student, and just ask them what they would do in that situation. And again, there's no real right or wrong answer, but we're just looking to make sure that they've not got any crazy ideas and that they're not really a danger to themselves or to others. We want to make sure that they're sort of quite grounded and logical and have a pragmatic approach to just life in general, really. So we're not trying to trick people. We're not trying to make people panic. We very much want students to come to us. And so we want to be friendly and appealing to students. So we don't want to put them off. But it is also an opportunity for the students to get to know about us as well. So they can ask us questions at the end about the university, the course, Leicester. So yeah, it's slightly less scary than it sounds, but students do get nervous anyway. But we do have a bit of a tell me all about yourself type introduction, so that they can feel at ease, and we have a bit of an icebreaker.
Are we sure that that introduction put them at ease in the beginning, not make them more nervous?
Well, I'm nice when I interview students, so I don't know. I've never asked for feedback, but I think everybody is probably the same. So I like to ask students about their hobbies and their interests, and tell me about what you're studying, and then once they start talking, they seem to relax, and then I will ask them about why they want to be a pharmacist, or why they're interested in studying pharmacy, and do they know anybody that's a pharmacist. And sometimes they say, yes, I've worked in a pharmacy for a year at the weekends. Sometimes I'll say, yes, my father's a pharmacist, or my mother, and I'll ask them about that. And then so it's conversational. It's more conversational than strict sort of questions that you may get in a job interview.
Okay. How long does the interview last usually?
Well, we're given half an hour per student, but it lasts maybe 15-20 minutes usually.
Okay.
It depends how easy they get through the questions, and if they have any questions at the end. Sometimes if they have lots of questions, it can last longer, but we have to no more than half an hour.
Any tip from you for them to read through or research? So they come in a decent shirt in a separate room.
Sorry, say that last bit again.
So they present a decent outfit, just come prepared.
Obviously, I think first impressions is good. So if they look smart and that type of thing. Yes,
and to bring a pen and paper in a separate room.
They'll be told to bring a pen and paper in the email. But yeah, be on their own. So when they're sent the Teams appointment, it'll have some details in there.
Perfect.
But yeah, be in a room by themselves, because I've rejected people in the past when they're obviously communicating with somebody else in the room.
Makes sense.
And that's not right. So we need to make sure that the answers they're given are their own, and that they're not being prompted in any way. And so no distractions really, I suppose. And in terms of preparation, I mean, yeah, they should have a think about, well, I suppose why they want to come to the UK will be important for an international student, and why they feel that pharmacy in the UK is for them. And again, do they understand about pharmacy in the UK and what the course is training them to do? So that sort of background around that really would be important. And that's it. I mean, there's not a lot they could revise because the maths is very straightforward. You know, it's not complicated. And the scenario they can change, and so we have various ones we ask, and that's just, we just want to know what they would say in that situation. But I think looking into, you know, studying in the UK, researching a little bit about the university and the course, and why they want to be a pharmacist is probably what they need to focus on.
Okie dokie. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So I have about a few slides to.
Should I stop sharing?
Yes, please.
Sorry, I think I've overrun a little bit. Sorry.
No. We still have, well, we have enough time. So I'll just go over quickly through our International Year Zero part, entry requirement again. Thank you so much, Tim, for including that part as well. But I'll just go through it again because I know everybody is really interested to know about that. So I'm just gonna stop talking and share. And a full screen, just give me a thumbs up when you see a full screen, please. Perfect. Yes. So we are OIG. We have 5 international colleges, and we have MPharm programs at only DeMontfort University. So that's our only MPharm program available. We recently had the San Francisco State University partnership. If you're not aware, you can reach your regional manager for more detailed information. This is us. So our unique point compared to our competitors is we issue combined CAS. So like Tim mentioned, student is going to get the 5-year CAS, including International Year Zero, and the MPharm 4 years, 5 years total. Our entry requirement is a 5.5 because CAS is issued by university level, but they can add pre-sessional English either online or offline, and student can join with the 4.5, each band 4.0 for 12 weeks PSC, or 5.0 for 6 weeks PSC, and this all can be on the same CAS. So basically, especially for the MPharm students, they tend to need more English skills. For them, they can choose to come to a center a little earlier, 6 weeks or 12 weeks. And in that case, they can join with the IELTS as low as 4.5, each band 4.0. And students can take our English test, not the IELTS. And this is only 80 pounds. It's 100% online. Results are available within 48 hours. So this is very, very simple. We have a multiple intakes, January, April, June, and September. And DeMontfort University International College, they can join for the April and June intake still for some of the pre-master courses. This is sample of our students for the MPharm. As you can see here, they get issued for the 5 years, including International Year Zero, first, second, and third, and fourth. And I think this is really powerful because we interview students before they join International Year Zero. We do not ask students to take an interview after International Year Zero. We do not ask students to submit another IELTS after IYZ. Students join our IYZ with the 5-year CAS. All they need is a passing those academic modules. I will show you in more details at the later. Then they will be progressed to a first year on the same visa. DMUIC pharmacy entry requirement, like Tim mentioned, student needs a math grades. It's required, equivalent to GCSEC. You can contact your regional manager for local entry requirement. For Korea, this is the Korean ranking 4 to 5, senior high 3. Chemistry is preferred. If the student does not have a chemistry, they can be considered case by case, but this is strongly recommended for a reason I'm going to speak about in the later slides. IELTS 5.5, but if students has a 4.5, each band 4.0, they can join our PSC for 12 weeks. They can be on the same visa again. Local certificate of good conduct when they're applying, we need a CV outlining full education history from age of 11, which is very simple, just bullet points. Online interview with the DMUI's PharmaceuticsLink tutor. And I think we have a cheat sheet today from a team's advice on the interview, which is not going to be very scary. Next is a progression requirement, which is very important for agents and students as well. They need English module grades, which is 47% for the MPharm students. So usually those art and design students, for example, they join with the 5.5, right? And they progress with the 6.0, which is 40%. MPharm students, they only need the 0.5 higher, which is not very challenging. It's 47%. What's better is that out of 3 terms of foundation, third term weights 80% of the grades. So this is, I think, very good for students because they tend to get a better English grades as they go on. 65% on the minimum chemistry 1 and 2. This is why we strongly recommend students to take chemistry in their high schools because they need to get the 65 on both chemistry 1 and 2 during foundation. 60% on entire program modules. Art and design, for example, they need 40% passing mark. MPharm students need 60%. But PCS students under the School of Pharmacy, the Pharmacy Foundation, they need 40%. So this is another good point for us, our program. Students joining Pharmacy IY0, if they have a 60% and a 65% on the chemistry, they can go on to their MPharm. But maybe they're studying their foundation, maybe MPharm is not their perfect route to go on, or they fail to get the 60%, it's just too challenging. They do not have to come back to their country. If they are over 40% passing mark, they can be reviewed on switching to the PCS, which is very similar, chemistry focused. It's very similar. So they sort of like a backup plan for them. We do not have a progression cap for international students. No additional interview again after the international year 0. Yes, so chemistry 1 and 2. This is a little table to show you how easy, not easy, but how it is achievable for MPharm IYD students to progress. All major centers, art and design, for example, at the DMUIC, they need 40% mark. PCS students, same, 40% academic modules. MPharm students, 60%. In terms of English, they join with the 5.5. They move on to first year with the 40%, which is equivalent to 6.0. PCS and the MPharm, 47%, which is equivalent to 65%. 7% is not that high. Progression additional requirement, only the MPharm students require 65% on chemistry 1 and 2. And in order to join our IYZ in pharmacy, they need math, GCSE C equivalent, chemistry strongly preferred, and IELTS 6.5, IELTS 5.5, but as low as 4.5 with the 12 weeks PSC edit. So I think this is a very good option for international students to join, especially when they can get the 5-year CAS for the MPharm. So last part is a tuition. We have a new tuition for the September 2022. It's not reflected here, but it's not going to be very different. So DeMontfort University MPharm foundation is about £16,000, which is quite affordable. And like Tim mentioned Leicester City, it's not very expensive to live in. Accommodation, on-campus accommodation, there are about 10 accommodations, if I remember correctly, and it starts from £99 per week, and this is on-campus accommodation. So for many more reasons, if you have any students wanting to apply for the MPharm at the DeMontfort University, you can contact your regional managers. Maybe we can offer an online English test if student does not have an IELTS. That's recognized by many other UK universities. It's with the 4 parts, same as IELTS, but the difference is it's done 100% online. Student is going to take it from their own room in a comfy PJ, unlike a MPharm interview. They can take it in a PJ. And this is their certificate that's being released within 48 hours after taking the test. So this is it for me. I will share the PPT and the recording again, but do we have any questions? Or I don't see anything on the Q&A or chat, which is always good that we covered them all during our PPT team, right? So okay, so we don't have any questions, everybody. You can leave it on a chat or a Q&A. But in the meantime, thank you so much, team, for today's session. It was really, really informative.
Thank you.
Just 1 second. If a student, we have one question. If a student fails 47% in English for progression, can students submit IELTS to replace? April, we actually need to check this with our DeMontfort International College Center. This is about the IYZ. So I'll check with our team and get back to you. Okay.
I think from my perspective, as long as they have
40%.
As long as if they went on to meet the requirements of the IELTS of 6.5 overall and nothing less than 6, then I'm sure we would accept that as well. But check with the NUIC just to be sure. Because
students need 40% bottom line anyways in order to progress. So if it's between 40 and 47, I'll check with our center if they can submit IELTS instead, but they need 40% for sure. So you mentioned MPharm 80% in term 3. Can I know? So there are 3 terms during their international year 0. We require for the MPharm students IELTS 6.5 equivalent, which is in our English module grades, it's a 47%. And for those 40%, it's average of 3 terms, but we weight not the proper pronunciation, but the 3rd term is 80% of that average, which means maybe they do a little poorly on their 1st term as soon as they arrive, but they improve their English scores, and during their term 3, they get a better grades. It's 80% of the average grades. So this is this is good. This is better for students average. Hope this makes sense. Thank you. Okay, thanks for the question. Okay, I think we can wrap this up for today. Any last word from you, Tim, before we let everybody go? No, thank you for the invitation, and I hope I helped answer some of your queries. But as I said, Jessica, if you have any, if anything comes to you in the next week or so, just let me know. Will do. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, team. Thank you, Nan, Dean, and Hima. Have a good afternoon or evening or the morning. Thank you, everybody. Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.